Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The air in Port Charles, heavy with a lingering humidity that promised a storm, seemed to press down upon the city with a particular malevolence. It was an atmospheric reflection of the collective mood, a miasma of grief, shock, and a desperate, clawing need for answers. The unthinkable had happened. Drew Kane, a man who had become a pillar of quiet strength and resilience in the community, had been gunned down in a brutal, seemingly random act of violence. The aftermath was a chaotic tapestry of flashing lights, frantic medical personnel, and the shattered faces of those who loved him. Carly Corinthos's tear-streaked, furious visage as she rode in the ambulance, her hand clamped around Drew's limp one, became an indelible image of the tragedy. Sonny Corinthos, his usual controlled demeanor fractured, paced the hospital waiting room like a caged tiger, the power he wielded in the underworld useless against the slow, agonizing tick of the clock. The police, led by a grim-faced Detective Harrison Chase, had little to go on: a fleeting shadow, the roar of an engine, a shell casing, and a city full of potential motives. In the immediate hours following the shooting, theories proliferated like weeds through cracked concrete. Was it a remnant of his past as a Navy SEAL, a ghost from a forgotten mission finally catching up to him? Was it a business rival, someone threatened by his ethical approach at Aurora Media? Or was it, as some darkly whispered, a case of mistaken identity, a bullet meant for another that found its mark in Drew's chest? The uncertainty was a poison in its own right, paralyzing the community and turning every stranger's glance into a potential threat. At the center of this maelstrom of fear and speculation was the one person who, by sheer, cruel coincidence, held the key to the entire mystery: Scout Kane, Drew's young daughter. To the adults around her, Scout was a victim of the tragedy, a child to be shielded, coddled, and protected from the horrifying truth of her father's condition. They saw her quietness, her wide, bewildered eyes, as a sign of trauma-induced shock. They spoke in hushed, careful tones around her, their words a sanitized version of events: "Daddy is hurt. The doctors are helping him. Everything will be okay." They failed to see the fierce intelligence behind her silence, the meticulous way her young mind was processing not just the emotion, but the data. For Scout, the world was a puzzle she was only just learning to solve, and the shooting of her father was the biggest, most terrifying piece she had ever encountered. The revelation did not come in a single, dramatic flash. It was a slow, dawning horror, built from fragments of overheard conversations, a child's intuitive understanding of her world, and one crucial, overlooked detail. It began in the safe house, a sterile, anonymous apartment where Carly and Elizabeth Weber had taken Scout and her brother Danny for their protection. The air was thick with tension. Elizabeth was a portrait of quiet, stoic agony, her medical mind warring with her heart, while Carly's anger was a live wire, sparking and dangerous. It was here that Scout, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a coloring book she wasn't actually looking at, first heard the name. Carly, on the phone with someone, her voice a low, furious hiss, said, "Chase said the ballistics are a match for a gun stolen in a burglary last month. It's a mess. They're chasing down every low-level thug Sonny ever fired." A few minutes later, Elizabeth, trying to soothe her, murmured, "They'll find who did this. They have to." And Scout, her head tilted, stored the information. Ballistics. Gun. Stolen. The next piece came from an unexpected source, a cartoon. It was a silly, brightly animated show about a group of animal detectives. In this particular episode, the clue that cracked the case was a unique footprint found near the scene of the crime, a footprint that matched a specific brand of boot one of the characters was wearing. The villain, a sneaky weasel, had tried to clean his boots, but a tiny piece of mud stuck in the tread gave him away. Scout watched, mesmerized. The concept of a match clicked into place in her mind. The police had a match from the gun. They needed to find what it matched. The following day, a break in the monotony arrived in the form of Jocelyn Jackson Cameron Weber, who had come to the safe house to bring food and offer support. Their presence was a small comfort, a slice of normalcy in the absurd nightmare. As the adults conversed in the kitchen, Jocelyn and Cam sat with Scout in the living room, trying to distract her. "Anything new, kiddo?" Cam asked gently, ruffling her hair. Scout just shook her head, her eyes fixed on the window. Jocelyn, trying to lighten the mood, nudged Cam. Remember that time at the lake, when you tried to skip a rock and it hit Spencer in the back? He was so mad. Cam chuckled, a hollow sound. Yeah. He was yelling about his designer shirt. Trina couldn't stop laughing. They continued, reminiscing about simpler times, their conversation a stream of familiar names and places. And then, Jocelyn said it, a casual, offhand comment that would become the linchpin. God, it feels like a lifetime ago. Before all this, before Dad's shooter, she caught herself, shooting a guilty look at Scout, but the damage was done. The word was out, hanging in the air. Shooter. In the mind of a child, especially one as observant as Scout, connections are made with a brutal, unadulterated logic. The puzzle pieces she had been subconsciously collecting began to shift and align. Shooter. Gun. Match. She thought of the cartoon. The detectives found a match for the footprint. The police needed to find a match for the gun. But what were they matching it to? Her brow furrowed in concentration. Later that evening, the final, devastating piece fell into place. Detective Chase had come to the safe house to give Elizabeth and Carly an update. Scout was supposed to be in bed, but the murmur of urgent voices from the living room had drawn her. She stood just around the corner, hidden in the shadows of the hallway, a small, silent witness. We've recovered the vehicle we believe was used in the shooting, Chase said, his voice weary. Abandoned in an old warehouse by the docks. It was wiped clean. No prints, no DNA. It's a dead end. There has to be something. Carly insisted, her voice cracking. What about the gun? You said the ballistics were specific. They are, Chase confirmed. It's a Glock 19. Common, but this one has unique markings from a custom modification. It's like a fingerprint. If we find the gun, we can prove it's the one that shot Drew. But without it, he trailed off, the implication clear. The adults continued talking, their voices a low rumble of frustration and despair, but Scout had stopped listening. Her entire world had narrowed to one word, a word that echoed in the silent, dark corridors of her memory. Glock. A week before the shooting, Scout had been playing in the park with a friend. Their game of tag had led them on a winding path through the trees, away from the watchful eyes of their mothers. They had stumbled upon a secluded clearing, a known spot for older kids and teenagers to hang out without supervision. And there, she had seen him. A boy she knew from a distance, a friend of her half-brother Danny's. He was older, cooler, with a swagger that both intimidated and fascinated her. He was showing something to another boy, something he'd pulled from his backpack with a furtive, proud glance. It was a gun. Black, heavy, menacing. Check it out, the boy had said, his voice low. My uncle's. A Glock. Got a custom job on the slide. Pretty sweet, huh? The other boy had whistled, impressed. Does it work? Course it works, the first boy had scoffed. It's not a toy. Scout, frightened by the intense, secretive energy, had frozen for a moment before scrambling back through the bushes, her heart hammering against her ribs. She hadn't understood the significance then. It was just a scary thing she'd seen, a secret she tucked away and tried to forget. But now, in the devastating context of her father's shooting, the memory roared back to life with the force of a physical blow. Glock. Custom job. The words from Detective Chase fused with the memory from the park. Match. The boy in the park was Scout. The realization did not come with tears or hysterics. For Scout, it was a cold, terrifying certainty that settled deep in her bones. The man who shot her dad was Scout. The name echoed in her head, a monstrous, impossible truth. How could it be Scout? Scout was a name, her name. It was a person. But the boy in the park, the one with the gun, his name was Scout, too. It was a nickname, she knew, short for something else, but it was what everyone called him. The confusion was immense, a tangled knot of identity and action that her young mind struggled to unravel. All she knew, with a clarity that was both profound and horrifying, was that Scout had the gun, and Scout had hurt her daddy. The burden of this knowledge was immense, a crushing weight on her small shoulders. The adults were searching for a monster, a faceless villain, and she alone knew that the monster had a name, a face she recognized. But how to tell them? The words wouldn't form. When she tried to speak, to say the name, a thick, sticky fear clogged her throat. Would they be angry with her for knowing? Would they think she was bad for not telling sooner? Would the boy, the other scout, get in trouble because of her? The moral and emotional calculus was far beyond her years, and it paralyzed her. For days, she carried the secret inside her. She became even quieter, more withdrawn. She watched the adults with new eyes, seeing their frantic searches, their dead-end theories, their escalating despair, all while she held the answer in her heart. She saw Elizabeth's face grow more gaunt, the shadows under her eyes deepening. She saw Carly's frustration boil over into reckless fury. She saw Sunny's quiet, simmering rage, a dangerous force looking for a target. Her silence was feeding the very monster that was tearing her family apart. The breaking point came during a visit to the hospital. Drew was still in a medically induced coma, his body a landscape of tubes and wires, the steady beep of the heart monitor a fragile him to his tenuous hold on life. Elizabeth had brought Scout to see him, hoping the familiar presence of her father would comfort her. She lifted Scout up to the bedside. "Talk to him, sweetie," Elizabeth whispered, her voice thick with tears. "He can hear you. Your voice can help him find his way back." Scout looked at her father's pale, still face. She looked at the bandages swathing his chest, the place where the bullet, from the gun that Scout had torn through him. The guilt and love and fear inside her swelled into an unbearable pressure. She leaned close, her small mouth near his ear, and the words, so long trapped, finally broke free in a tiny, choked whisper. "Daddy, the bad man, it was Scout." Elizabeth, standing just behind her, stiffened. Her breath caught in her throat. She leaned in, not sure she had heard correctly. "What, honey? What did you say?" Scout turned her tear-filled eyes to her mother, her small body trembling with the force of her confession. "The man with the gun. In the park. He said his name was Scout. He had the Glock." The world in that hospital room seemed to stop. The beeping of the monitor, the distant hospital page, all of it faded into a dull hum. Elizabeth Weber, a woman who had faced down death, madness, and countless crises, felt the floor drop out from beneath her. She stared at her daughter, the simple, devastating logic of a child's testimony crashing over her. It wasn't a ghost from Drew's past. It wasn't a business rival. It was a boy. A boy named Scout. Scout? Elizabeth repeated, her mind racing, trying to place the name. And then, it clicked. With a sickening, horrifying jolt, she knew. There was only one Scout in their orbit. It was a nickname for a young man she knew, a boy caught up in a dangerous world, the son of a woman with a long and complicated history with both her and Drew. The pieces of a different, more intimate puzzle began to snap together, forming a picture far more treacherous and heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. She scooped Scout into her arms, holding her tight, her own tears now falling for a new reason, not just for Drew's suffering, but for the immense burden her daughter had been carrying, and for the terrifying implications of the truth she had just unveiled. "It's okay, baby," she whispered into Scout's hair, her voice shaking. "You were so brave to tell me. So brave." Elizabeth's mind was already shifting from grief to strategy. She didn't call out for a nurse or announce the discovery. She carried Scout from the room, her steps quick and purposeful. She needed Carly. She needed Sunny. She needed to get this information to Chase, but she knew, with a chilling certainty, that the official channels might be too slow. The name Scout changed everything. It made the threat personal, immediate, and deeply entwined with the most powerful and dangerous families in Port Charles. Finding Carly in the family lounge, Elizabeth delivered the news in a low, urgent whisper. Carly's reaction was instantaneous and volcanic. Her grief-sharpened features contorted into a mask of pure, undiluted fury. "Scout," she hissed, the name a curse on her lips. "Are you sure?" Scout is sure, Elizabeth said, her arms still wrapped protectively around her daughter. She saw him with a Glock, bragging about a custom modification just days before the shooting. It fits what Chase said about the ballistics. Carly's eyes burned with a frightening light. The abstract shooter now had a name, a face, and for Carly, that made him a target. All the helpless rage she had been feeling for days now had a focal point. I have to call Sonny, she said, already pulling out her phone. He needs to know. Now. The revelation passed from a child's whisper to a mother's heart, and then into the eager, furious hands of Carly Corinthos, became a spark thrown into a powder keg. The hunt for Drew's shooter was no longer a police investigation, it was a personal vendetta. The name Scout echoed through the phones and safe houses of Port Charles, a trigger for a chain of events that would unravel alliances, expose hidden agendas, and plunge the city into a new kind of war. The identity was out, and the reckoning was coming. The calm before the storm was officially over. The hallway outside the ICU felt colder than usual as Drew paced back and forth, his hospital gown traded for loose sweats someone had brought him. The bullet wound wasn't as dangerous as it could have been, but the sting in his side was nothing compared to the ache in his chest, an ache rooted in confusion, fear, and an image he couldn't get out of his mind. A small figure. A trembling hand. A flash of terror just before the gun went off. He tried to tell himself he was remembering it wrong, but the memory replayed with brutal clarity every time he closed his eyes. Sam hurried toward him, her face etched with worry. Drew, you shouldn't be out of bed. I'm fine, he insisted, though sweat dotted his hairline. Have they said anything? Have the cops figured out who pulled the trigger? Sam swallowed hard, her gaze drifting away. They're still piecing together the evidence. Drew stopped pacing and studied her. Sam. Look at me. She did, reluctantly, and something in her eyes made his stomach twist. You know something, he said quietly. And you're afraid to tell me. Sam exhaled a shaking breath. I don't want to say anything until I'm sure. Sure about what? He pressed. Sam, I was shot. Whoever did this isn't just some random threat. I need to know what I'm dealing with. It's complicated, she whispered. Then uncomplicate it. Sam opened her mouth to respond, but the door at the end of the hallway swung open, and Dante approached, expression heavy, shoulders tense. His presence alone shifted the air. Drew felt Sam stiffen beside him. Dante, Drew said. Tell me you have answers. Dante stopped, jaw clenched. We got the ballistics back. And we've reviewed the security footage. Sam reached for Drew's arm as if bracing him. Dante, maybe we should talk somewhere private. This is private, Drew said, voice low but firm. Just tell me. Dante hesitated only a moment before giving in. The shooter wasn't an adult. Drew stared, confused. What? A kid? That doesn't make any sense. Sam's voice broke. It does, Drew. It does if it was someone who was scared, someone who didn't understand what they were doing. Drew's heart started hammering as something dark and cold gathered in his stomach. Sam, what are you saying? Dante lifted a hand, as though trying to soften the blow that was coming. We cross-checked everything. Fingerprints. The trajectory. The size of the shooter from the footage. And, he paused, took a breath. It matches Scout. The world seemed to tilt. Drew blinked at Dante, waiting for him to laugh, to take it back, to explain it was some kind of twisted misunderstanding. But Dante's expression remained steady, grave, and deeply pained. No, Drew said, voice cracking. No, that's impossible. Scout is a little girl. She couldn't. Sam stepped forward, tears forming. Drew, listen to me. This wasn't intentional. She didn't mean to hurt you. She found the gun you were cleaning. She panicked. Something startled her. That's not true, Drew snapped, stepping away. I'm always careful with weapons. I never leave them lying around. You were distracted, Sam said softly. You were talking on the phone. She came into the room without you noticing. Dante added, we're not saying Scout pulled the trigger on purpose. It was an accident. But legally. Legally? Drew repeated, stunned. You're talking to me about legalities like this is some kind of case? That's my daughter. Dante's face softened. Which is why we want to handle this delicately. But we need your statement. And we need to confirm you're not hiding anything. Drew almost laughed, a raw, broken sound. Hiding anything? You think I'd protect myself over my own kid? Sam reached out again. Drew, stop. Nobody is attacking you. His eyes burned as he turned on her. You knew. You knew when you walked up here. Why didn't you tell me? Sam's tears spilled. Because I didn't want you to fall apart. I didn't want you blaming yourself. Or her. Drew ran a shaking hand through his hair. I don't understand. Why would she pick up the gun? I taught her never to touch guns. I taught her safety first. She said she thought it was part of your job, Sam whispered. She said she wanted to understand what you do. She thought being like you would make you proud. Drew staggered, breath catching. Oh God. No. She must be terrified. She is, Sam admitted. She's been asking for you. Crying. She won't calm down. She thinks you're mad at her. She thinks you might not want her anymore. Those words gutted him. Where is she? In an interview room with a child advocate, Dante said. We needed to hear her version of things. You questioned my daughter without me? Drew's voice rose sharply. She's 8 years old. We didn't interrogate her, Dante said carefully. We made sure she was safe. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody pressured her. But we had to move fast. Drew shook his head and pushed past them. I'm going to her. Sam hurried after him. Drew, wait. You need to prepare yourself. She's shaken. She doesn't look like herself right now. I don't care, he said, throat tight. She needs her dad. Dante hesitated before nodding. I'll take you. The walk to the interview room felt endless. Drew's mind raced, every step forcing him to confront a truth he wasn't ready for. Scout, his little girl, his curious, loving, brave daughter, had been holding the gun. She'd been the one who fired. Not on purpose. Not with malice. But enough to nearly take him from her, and enough to change everything. Dante opened the door slowly. Scout sat in the corner on a soft chair, knees pulled to her chest, cheeks streaked with tears. Her shoulders shook with every breath. A stuffed unicorn, one the advocate had given her, rested in her lap. The moment she saw him, her eyes widened with desperate hope. Daddy? Drew's breath hitched. He crossed the room in an instant and knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms. Scout clung to him with a sob so raw it shattered him. I'm sorry, she cried. Daddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know it would go boom like that. He held her tighter. Shoo, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm here. I'm right here. I was scared, she sobbed. I heard a noise. I didn't know what to do. It just happened. I know, Drew whispered, kissing her hair. I know you didn't mean it. I love you so much. Nothing will ever change that. Sam stood in the doorway, watching, tears silently falling. Scout pulled back slightly, terrified. Are the police gonna take me away? No, Drew said immediately, firmly, his hand cupping her cheek. Nobody is taking you anywhere. Do you hear me? You're safe. You're with me. Dante spoke gently from behind him. She's not in trouble, Drew. We just need to make sure the environment is safe moving forward. I'll take care of it, Drew said without turning around. I'll lock everything up. I'll throw every gun in the damn harbor if I have to. Scout sniffled. Daddy, are you mad? He shook his head, voice trembling. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. I should have made sure you couldn't reach it. I should have been more careful. This is on me. Not you. Scout wrapped her arms around his neck again, clinging with all the strength her small body had left. After a long moment, Drew stood, lifting her with him. She held on like she was afraid he'd disappear. Sam approached cautiously. Scout, sweetheart, can I hug you? Scout hesitated, then nodded. Sam wrapped her arms around both of them, and for the first time since the shooting, Drew felt something soften inside him, a fragile sense of family, bruised but not broken. Dante gave them space, stepping outside the room. Later, after Scout had calmed down, Drew sat with her while Sam brought her some water and a blanket. Scout leaned against him sleepily, the emotional exhaustion taking its toll. Daddy, she murmured. Yes, baby? Are you gonna go away again? Like when you were hurt before? No, he said, stroking her hair. I'm not going anywhere. But I hurt you. You made a mistake, he said gently. A really big, really scary mistake. But people make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them. And we keep each other safe. She nodded against his chest. Daddy? Yes? Do you still love me? Drew felt his heart break all over again. With everything I am. She closed her eyes, finally drifting into sleep. Sam entered, her expression softening. She's worn out. She shouldn't have had to go through this, Drew said quietly. She's just a kid. You'll help her, Sam said. She needs you. I need her too, he admitted. Sam sat beside him. We'll get her through this. Together. Drew looked at her, eyes heavy with a mix of gratitude and pain. What happens now? We make a plan, Sam answered. Therapy. Safety protocols. A way to help her understand what happened without scaring her more. And the police? He asked. I'll handle the paperwork, Dante said from the doorway. As long as everything matches what we know, this'll stay closed. Drew nodded. Thank you. Dante offered a small, understanding smile. Take her home. She needs familiar things. And she needs her dad. Sam added softly, she needs both of us. Drew looked down at Scout sleeping soundly in his arms, the weight of her small body grounding him in a way nothing else could. She had almost lost him. He had almost lost her. And now they faced the long road ahead, not of punishment, but of healing. As he stood and carried her out of the room, Drew whispered to her, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. We're gonna be okay, Scout. I promise. And in a world full of danger, choices, and consequences, that promise was the only truth he could hold on to.